and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat.
They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't a take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, and everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
I mean, we could calm down, but after last night and the start that this Canucks team continues to have, no,
No, sir.
We've gone through too many shitty seasons over the past few years to not be to be calm when this is happening.
Boy, isn't it pretty interesting how long ago that intro was put together? And those last two clips there was Kevin talking about McDavid and looking for penalties or whatever, and that wasn't. And here we are. Last night was something.
It wasn't. So welcome to the Shift and Pucks podcast. Just to clear things up, yeah, sorry we didn't have an episode last week. I was quite sick, so we couldn't pull together. But we're back. The Canucks continue to win, so that's fantastic. And how are you doing this week, there, Tyler?
I'm fantastic as well, despite the time change. We had a little chat about the time change. You know, whether you like it being dark going home from work or in the morning. I certainly find having it dark, getting up in the morning, not to be very much fun. So we got a little bit of morning daylight again, at least up here in northern BC for a little while, and no snow yet of any significance. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that out loud or not, but yeah. And
give it time.
The rec hockey team's been doing pretty well this year, and so that's been fun as well. And you know, now I mean it's just Saturday, you know, sitting down with the friends and to watch the Canucks on Hockey Night in Canada. And it's like, man, when was the last time we've watched a game on November 4th with this level of significance? You know, against Dallas and the Canucks are among the teams or among the league's best teams right now. It's just it's so hard to actually say those words and believe them.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just. It's my like again we talked about 500 off that first road trip, start building, making having the process there. The process is there, the results are there. The Canucks are looking really good, and it's just did not expect this. I felt that the Canucks would be. I was like I didn't. I was cautious. I've been cautiously optimistic at the beginning of the last few seasons and had my heart broken. Yeah. So this year I was like, no, I'm not cautiously optimistic. I need a new term for this because I was kept looking at it going, okay, I've liked these signings. I feel like if Demko's healthy, they have a shot to be better.
Yeah.
But now it's just what is the ceiling for this team? This season.
Right now it feels like our guys they can win every game. They're not going to win every game, but the contrast was a year ago thinking will they win even 10? You know, for a while there, it was, you know, I went down for their last year, their I think second or third home game or something. It was in late October against Pittsburgh, and they had just got their first win the night prior in Seattle, and I hadn't even left Terrace yet, waiting in the airport, thinking, am I going to be hoping for win number one tomorrow night? You know, that's it was, man, oh man. So, and then to top it all off, 3 wins against Edmonton, a rival team, and they were just completely unglued. I'm sure we'll get into that in great detail here in a second, but
Yeah, being 14 points up on the Oilers this early in the season when the Oilers came in like saying all the right things. They were pissed off after last year. You thought that they'd come in guns a blazing, and they've just been just horrible defensively. And then now the Canucks have figured out the defensive game. They're getting scoring up and down the lineup. Their top players are driving the bus.
they can defend.
Yeah.
It gets a little scrambly at times, sure, but I mean, it's they're getting the job done.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, like all the division, like the Canadian divisional rivals, the Oilers and the Flames are both just shitting the bed. I mean, it's just after 8 o'clock Mountain Time on Tuesday, November 7th, and the Flames are down 2-0 to the Predators, and is this sustainable, Tyler? Can the Canucks continue not necessarily at this level at a 792 points percentage? I think is what it is, or close to it. But can they be sustainably the second best team in the Pacific Division? Because I think we can definitively say right now that Vegas is most likely going to be going to win this division now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's very much possible to be running at this clip. No, there's probably going to be a couple of dips, but every point collected now, and we're into November, is another step closer to the promised land of the postseason. When I say promised land, because it just seems like so far out of reach in recent times, outside of the playoff bubble in 2020, and with every point collected, they're afforded a little more wiggle room to hit some rough patches, right? Like before, it was always this uphill battle that just got steeper and steeper, where you couldn't afford even 2 or 3 losses in a row that would just completely set you back in terms of the playoff chase. Whereas now there's a bit more, like I say, wiggle room to sustain a period without some key players due to injury or whatever. And that's the part that the Canucks haven't really been tested at. It's been a pretty consistent lineup the whole way through here thus far. Their best start in franchise history, and like so the confidence is high. Hopefully they can stay healthy. At this point, is there anybody that they can't beat? I mean, they're the hottest team in the league right now. So it would be most interesting to see how they do against Vegas and Colorado, I guess we could say. This Eastern road trip will be very fun. There's going to be a lot of it's always a different experience with the Eastern Canadian media when the Canucks make their road trip out there. But the Canucks are the toast of the league in certain respects right now, and there's going to be it's going to be a different vibe during this road trip.
Yeah, I heard a stat today. Wish I could figure out where I heard it so I could pull it up and make sure it's correct. But it's something along the lines of the Canucks goal differential 12 games in is the highest since the 84-85 Oilers.
Some pretty good company there.
Yeah, I think that's the stat. If it's something around that, it's.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to continue on being this like this, but I mean it helps when you beat up on San Jose, who's just historic. It looks like they're going to be historically bad, but beating up on the Oilers, what's the goal differential in those 3 games? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and Don Taylor and others have talked about this. I referenced Don because it's kind of where I first heard this and the light bulb went on for me. But that's what's been so much different this year. It's not so much the record, it's how they've gotten there. coming off a long road trip, that's traditionally been such a problem game for the Canucks. What do? They come out 5-0 shutout against St. Louis. Then they go back-to-back nights. They take on a tough Ranger team. They scrap like hell to get it to overtime. To get a bad judgment, non-call there in overtime, which ends up leading to the game-winning goal for the Rangers, but still collect a point there. That's 3 points out of 4 in back-to-back nights. And then the San Jose game, as the old proverbial trap game. It'd be easy just for a one-game road trip to take this bottom feeder team a little lightly. No, what do they go out and do? They absolutely embarrass them in their own building. And then last night, where the Oilers were, desperate and playing like it for the first little while, and really, got the first goal. It was an awesome goal from Ekholm, and you could see the life in the Oilers team. It was like, okay, maybe it's going to be kind of tough tonight. And then the Canucks hit right back with 3 goals. And then by the end, they're unglued. The coach gets ejected. And the day after, Jack Campbell's on waivers. So it's and I know we'll get to that as well. But that's not only are they beating teams, but they're licking their wounds after the teams that they're beating right now.
Yeah. Well, before we get to last night's game versus Oilers, I actually want to talk about the Saturday night's game versus Dallas, because that was a fun chess match of a game.
Yeah, it was. Felt like a playoff game in a lot of ways. I mean, maybe not the fan energy in the building so much, but the style of game, like you talked about, that chess match. It was just everything was tight. There was no room to operate out there. You had great goaltending at both ends. It was a low-scoring game. And that's often what playoff hockey is like. And that's what kind of goes to my point earlier about, you're sitting down to watch this game on November 4th. And it's like, when was the last time on November 4th we're watching a game where it's like, holy, this is a big statement game here?
Well, you're looking at Dallas. Even after that loss, they're still the Central Division beating Dallas Stars. And then you got the Canucks, who are second place in the Pacific. And it's just, it felt like a game against a matchup of 2 heavyweights. Yeah. And that's something that we haven't seen or felt as Canucks fans for years. And it's just so refreshing. I'm looking forward to watching games now, as opposed to sort of just the Canucks are on. I guess they'll put it on.
I mean, it was getting that way last year, and there was, last year with a December World Cup and how long that tournament goes on. I mean, it was even one extra thing that could take my attention away from hockey for a little bit. But I mean, the Canucks are our team, our primary sporting interest, and no wonder everybody's in such a good mood right now, because it's been going like this, right? What a change from last year. And I know there's a few people out there in the media or in certain circles that are looked at the San Jose game as instructive on the whole tear it down rebuild concept, and the Canucks have never really wanted to do this. However, there's in more recent times there's been some pretty dramatic changes, right? Obviously, the signing of JT Miller led to Bo Horvat being traded. That means a new captain. Now they have a new captain. They cleaned out the coaching staff. And seemingly, Jim Rutherford has that full autonomy to operate, right? Where he can go to ownership in the offseason and say, we need to buy out Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and boom, it's done. And hopefully this culture from the top, and that word's getting thrown around a lot, remains for a while. And if that's the case, who knows how far this team can go.
Yeah. And then let's talk about last night's game versus the Oilers, because that was I feel like chaos. That was a game that had a little bit of everything. Oilers come out guns a-blazing, just getting stymied by Thatcher Demko. They get 1 goal on him on a power play, are out shooting the Canucks ridiculous. And then the Canucks get a goal against the run of play, and then get a couple more before the end of the first, and then after that, the second period was all Canucks.
Mm-hmm.
That was great to see. It was hilarious when I just put into our group chat. I totally expected the Oilers to come out strong, pushing hard, because not only they are struggling, but I feel like they feel embarrassed after getting absolutely shelled in the opener, and then losing game 2 as well to the Canucks, and then Demko holds down the fort in the first period. Canucks get a couple lucky breaks and score on.
I'm glad you say that. I should jump in there. It has been interesting this year how there seems to be more of that. It's always felt like, even when the Canucks were a top team going back to, circa 2010, 2011, it seemed like still there was all this discussion about breaks not going their way, and maybe winning in spite of the officiating or in spite of the league's decision making here, or whatever kind of out there theories you want to have. Breaks just seemed hard to come by, and I know it's a small sample size here to start the season, but there have been some breaks.
There have been,
Yeah.
yes.
You'll take them when you can get them. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I don't. It's not like I want to give them back.
In the first period, there the refs initially call a high stick on Connor Garland, and Derek Ryan is bleeding, so it's a 4-minute, so they can review it.
Yeah.
It was really an elbow.
Yeah.
He should have been in the box for 2 minutes for elbowing.
Yeah.
But because of the intricacies of that review rule, no penalty on the play. We've seen that happen to the Canucks the other way in the past.
Yeah.
Where the Canucks player is bleeding after taking an errant stick from a teammate or their own or something like that, but it was originally called a 4-minute power play, and then it gets called back for nothing.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah, it's a weird intricacy that I think they should find a way to fix, but it went in the way for the Canucks then, and then you had that. You had the Oilers' second goal was weird. Like, that probably should have, like, the Canucks could have been. I think the Canucks could have challenged that and gotten that goal called back, but they didn't. Then you had the goal that was called back for kicking.
Yes, and that not a challenge that was reviewed by the refs on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the final straw for Jay was, McDavid got penalized for a run-in with Suter, and then Holloway had something similar happen to him, and he didn't get called. And then Jay asked a question which Kelly Sutherland didn't like. I think he was the referee. 2 veterans, by the way. Kevin Pollock, the other referee, and that's now 2 coaches thrown out of games this year.
Yeah, Greg Cronin and Jay Woodcroft now. And then also in the game, you also had JT Miller scoring a goal. The ref's not calling it a goal on the ice, and then you get the horn 20 seconds after.
Yeah,
like it was just all the different things in that game was hilarious.
Let's throw in also the 6th goal. Besser putting it into the open net, gets his stick flipped in the air, and then he catches it in the air like no big deal.
No, it's really, this has been great. Let's enjoy it while we can. I don't know how long it's going to go for. I think that the Canucks, the way they're playing, the way that Quinn Hughes is playing, Pettersson's playing, JT Miller's playing, Demko's playing, like the whole team's bought into this system that Tocchet has put in, and Tocchet and the coaching staff has implemented.
Yeah,
I don't think they're gonna continue to just be this much of a wagon, but I think they're gonna be. Yeah, I think I don't want to say too early. It's still early, but it definitely feels like the dark days are over.
It almost has to make you a little bit nervous when. Now, think what you want about Spit and Chicklets, but just the fact that they are hyping up the Canucks
Yeah.
And I mean, I think they, and I mean, it's like shockingly like really buttering up the Canucks right now. That's a real measure in modern times with the way the league's covered now with podcasts, and there's one of the biggest. Um, when they're all over it, it's like, wow, this thing has really turned around. One comment I had last night with my buddies about this was, it's not just the record. It's at home. Man, it's exciting to be in the rink again. I mean, they're scoring and scoring and scoring, and they're taunting the opponents, and the place is full. It's bumping again. It's and you can you can feel it through the TV now. I mean, I was at the great
Yeah.
fortune of being able to be at the home opener, but since then, that's continued, right? I mean, every game's been so entertaining, and the home atmosphere is supposed to be an advantage, and it's supposed to be somewhat difficult for the opposing teams, and they're it feels like we might be back to that.
Oh yeah. The Rogers Arena feels like it feels like it's back in like the late '90s, early 2010s
Yeah.
when the Sedins and that team were at the height. And it's starting to feel that way again, which is
Yep.
fantastic. And a big part of that is the fact that the Canucks have their stars and they are playing lights out.
Yes, they are.
You've got Pedersen, who's leading the league in points with 21. Quinn Hughes is only 1 point back with 20. You've got Thatcher Demko being a Vezina candidate. So with that, I know it's early, way too early. We're 12 games in, but
Qualifying.
ESPN did brought out their awards watch for the first time this year, and the Canucks basically swept it.
Yeah, it's a guys. Yeah. Well, I mean, it'd be pretty disappointing at this stage if there's no major individual award that goes to a Canucks player.
Mhm.
Now it just comes
So
down to
you've got
who's going to be.
you got Petey, and I'd throw Quinn. Both deserve talk at this point in the season for the Hart. Quinn Hughes is Norris. The Vezina with Thatcher Demko. Rick Tocchet will be in the running for the Jack Adams if this continues. Out of those players, and even Petey for the Selkie as well. Out of those players, who do you, and Rick Tocchet, who do you think has the best chance at taking home one of those awards at the end of the year?
I think it's Quinn Hughes. Just how dramatically like more dominant he has been. I mean, they're all playing great, and they're all making their own case for those awards. But the way Quinn Hughes is playing was just so much confidence. It's like he's got that C on his jersey, and he's just out of his mind right now. And it's just the truck is just running away down the hill, and there's no stopping this guy. And you know it's hard to imagine it just completely falling off anytime soon with him. Whereas with PD, scoring slumps happen, and that could kind of pop up at any time. And Demko, it's I guess for me, I'm not so goalie focused. This has been more of a kind of a slower progression, and yeah, he's been on people's radar for a while. And it's going to really come down to what other goalies are doing. I think more than it would be with Hughes or with Petey. But yeah, if I had to pick one of the three, I think Quinn Hughes probably has the best shot of them to stay in the front running position there for in his case the Norris Trophy.
I agree. I think. Well, I made the bold prediction that Thatcher Demko will be in the Vezina, be a Vezina candidate if not winner before the season started. That's looking good.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, and I think it's Quinn Hughes who's got the best chance right now. Just the way he's playing, no one's close.
No.
In terms of defensemen right now. That can change. Again, it's way too early to really be having this conversation. But at this point, he has been the best defenseman in the league this season.
And you talk about awards. I mean, there is a General Manager of the Year award, and I wouldn't. But put Patrick Alvin, in the same sort of echelon in terms of handicapping his chances of that award. But he had a great offseason. And and then they make some late moves to add Sam Lafferty and Mark Friedman, and those are everyday guys, and they're helping. Like, it's just amazing. They have come in and fit in and have helped. And there's and they reinforce kind of the culture that Rick Tocchet and his coaching staff have been trying to put in, and then they really are running, I think, a true meritocracy there, right? Like Philip Giuseppe, geez, I almost butchered that myself. Di Giuseppe, he's on the team. Puya Suter's on the team. I mean, these guys earn these spots, and they're proving it right. Night in and night out, and rewarding the coaching staff for the faith.
Yeah,
and if it means a guy like Vasily Podkolzin continues to work at his craft in the minors, then hopefully when his services are needed, they can bring him up, and he's just going to slot right in and keep the thing moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that Sam Lafferty acquisition, I think, looks like an absolute steal.
Yeah,
like he fits the Rick Tocchet system like a glove.
Yeah,
and people were complaining about giving up a pick for someone who they thought there would be players available on the waiver wire. That would be equivalent.
And it was a fifth-round draft pick, was it?
Yeah.
So
I don't think that.
What are the odds, really, that future fifth-round pick is going to give you more than Sam Lafferty is giving them now?
Very, very, very little.
Right.
And it's just, but they went after someone that they know what and are comfortable with him, because he was with Pittsburgh when Alvin and Rutherford were there, and he just fits it. Like, you would very rarely are going to find a waiver wire pickup that's going to fit that role that well. So paying a fifth round pick, that's peanuts for what he's bringing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've got one of my favorite players to watch this season has been Niels Höglander, because he's found his tenacity. He's being a rat. He's being a punchable face. Like, he drew a penalty last night.
Yeah.
It was great.
Well, nice
that's what you want from him.
Yeah.
That whole sequence for him was fantastic, because he made that beautiful bank pass to spring that rush, and then he gets rewarded with that goal. Like, it's just every line seems to have an identity. Every line seems to have energy when they're out there.
Yeah.
So it's
and teams are having trouble matching it. I mean, no matter how hard they try, they just if they get a couple of more than a couple of big saves. Demko's making lots of great saves, but you get his end of it, and you get a few breaks along the way. Then with that energy level, man, it's tough for any team right now.
It is. And I want to get back to some of the sustainability that we were talking about. And you can look at the Canucks shooting percentage and save percentage and say that it's higher than the average and it's gonna come back down. Yeah, maybe. But also what's happening is I'll look at last night's game in as an example. If you take away that first, the shot share between the Canucks and the Oilers was pretty even, but the Canucks were controlling the play a little bit more. So when you look at shot share and all those type of stats, I feel like they just missed context. And you talked about getting lucky breaks here and there, and just the way hockey is and how fluid it is. It just sometimes breaking it down to just shot attempts and expected goals and all that, I don't think does the game justice. Because I think, hell, if you go back to last night again and you talk about that big save that Demko made in the beginning of the game, if he doesn't make that save, and I think that would have put the Oilers up 2-0. It's a completely different game. That was
Yeah.
a game-changing save in the first period.
Yes. That's what good goaltending is all about, is the timeliness of those timely
Exactly.
saves, right? I mean, you can afford some other ones sometimes in other circumstances, but when in that moment, at that juncture of the game where there is a bit of a tipping point there, he came through with a save. And then the Dallas game, there was that one where he was sliding back and forth and got the glove out there, and that one, if that one gets past him there, that's a different game too.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why like, it's just those things, the plays like that can change the momentum of a game and change the just how the game progresses. And you can't overlook it, in my opinion. And there's too many times where people just look at those charts and stats and just don't think into that part. So
Well, this is where you gotta, if you really are watching the games, you will start to pick up on little details like that, and little moments, little turning points. Just these things will jump out at you as they're not so measurable things, but they count still immensely.
they do. And then before we move on from the Canucks, we need to, not only are the Canucks in the at the NHL level doing really well, AHL, you've got Archie Baines, who's leading the AHL in points.
Hmm.
You've got um, Brushkevich in the OHL, who's been on an absolute tear. You've got Lekaramaki out in the SHL finding his game after a rough season. It just seems like everything's not only just at the NHL level, but Tom Willander's starting to start. You're seeing highlights of him playing well at Boston University. Like all their key players throughout in the system seem to be starting to develop now too.
And I know there's a disparity in games played, but just looking at the AHL standings, it's funny how in their Pacific Division you've got Henderson and Abbotsford 1 and 2, the farm teams of Las Vegas and Vancouver 1-2 in their Pacific Division as well. Can we keep it that way? That would be nice. Maybe even flip them around. How about that? But
Yeah,
yeah.
It's great to see.
That's the thing. This is the true next test for the Canucks. Well, there's a few next tests. Obviously, is the length of the season and being able to sustain it over the length of the season, and some stronger teams that they haven't played yet. But then having to pluck from the AHL when they need to backfill due to injuries. We'd like to think that the depth is there to weather those rough patches. Time will tell, but it just on just that cursory look at the standings right now, and just what you've talked about with Baines and Willander, and some of the other prospects for the Canucks, things are looking up in that regard too.
Yeah, you've got Archie Baines got 16 points in 11 games. You've got Niels Lamont with 11 points in 11 games. Pod Colson's got 7 points in 6 games. Like Atu Aratu's got 7 points in 11 games. Like everyone's starting to click, and everything like it just feels like Rutherford, Alvin, and this management team is starting to really start to implement their plan this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the excite. You can hear the excitement level in both of our voices when we're talking about all this, and it feels it's nice and refreshing.
There's a lot of sonic.
Yeah.
Well, and then just to touch on the Oilers end of it briefly here. I mean, it's amazing how the tables have turned really for both teams, both fan bases. I mean, right now, if I didn't spend too much time looking around what the Edmonton media had to say today, but there's a lot being made of goaltending, and yes, the goaltending's poor. When you don't have good goaltending in high level hockey, frankly, if you don't have good goaltending, if you don't have adequate goaltending, even in lower levels of hockey, it's a pretty tough sled. But So that's that. But to me, that it just, and this just, I shake my head at it with the Oilers. To me, as long as there is an issue with goaltending, it lets everybody off the hook, everybody else on that team. And I mean, there is a major absence of leadership in that team right now. And I'm not just talking players. It's not a specific comment about Connor McDavid, right? From management to coaching to the players themselves. Everybody's looking around for an answer. It seems like they didn't get they didn't address their needs in the off season. The coach looks like he's out of ideas, and you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl now twice in games in Vancouver behaving like boneheads, basically in the third period when the game was kind of out of reach for them, and then they're in the media making excuses. It's just so concerning. And then who takes the fall? Jack Campbell gets placed on waivers. It's like, boy, oh boy. I know there's no easy fixes there without much salary cap space, and the prospect pool isn't. I don't know. I'm not an expert on the Oilers prospect pool, but I don't imagine it's that strong.
No.
Where do they go from here? I mean, if they're gonna salvage their hopes at making the playoffs, it's got to happen quickly.
Yeah, I think they have to be at or better than their pay for the rest of the season. They can't have any more stinkers. They have to be at or better than the pace that they of 105 or 9 points that they had last year.
Yeah,
They have to be at or better than that pace for the rest of the year, and they cannot falter to even get close to the playoffs here. So it's a long road ahead for them. What the way with the Oilers, it reminds me so much of what the Canucks went through last year, where yes, they're not getting goaltending, but the defense isn't there either. They're not doing any giving the goaltenders any sort of help at all. Like even just look at some of the goals last night. They just the back checking wasn't there. Yeah, maybe they're like the Pia Suter goal. I think Skinner probably should have had that, but he was also shooting from the top of the slot.
To me, it's just a lazy analysis to say, okay, when you're not winning and the goals against total is high, that it's the goalie's fault, right? I mean, if it's Nick Lidstrom and Dan Kluche, sorry to bring up bad memories here. If it's that every night, okay, yes, it's the goaltending, right? Like that's not a debate. If you're getting passes from center ice essentially are getting past the goalie. That's not the case. Yeah, there's been some goals they wish they should have had, but I mean, the rest of it has just been so poor, and they haven't been able to outscore their problems and mask it. That look where they are.
Yeah.
But the fact that they had two goalies and neither one was really grabbing the net, yes, that's an issue, and that's why Jack Campbell is going on waivers here too. And is it a cap savings thing? I mean, yeah, they get another $250,000 or so in cap savings by sending Jack Campbell down. If I heard this correct in the media today, is
they're going to send Jack,
the guy that's coming up? Like, is he?
Yeah, Calvin Picker's coming.
This is just shaking it up. I mean, it's like
it's just it's literally a shake it up move.
Yeah.
Calvin Pickard in 4 games has a 2.03 goals against average and a 939 save percentage with the Bakersfield Condors this year.
Yes.
Last year in 38 games, he had a 912 save percentage and a 2.7 goals against average. So but yeah, and his cap hit minus the 1.1 that the Oilers are going to save when they send Campbell down. Yeah, they save $300,000. That's really it.
No, I mean,
so
as far as cap management, this is like throwing stones from glass houses as a Canuck fan a little bit. But I will remind everybody, and we talked about it on this show, both teams started that opening night on October 11th playing a player short due to salary cap purposes, I believe. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I guess every dollar does count.
Right now, every dollar does count. So, yeah, I think they.
This is, so for Edmonton, just very quickly, I mean, they got San Jose on Thursday. I mean, absolute must win game. Seattle on Saturday on Hockey Night in Canada. That's a big one, too. And if Jay
I'm
Woodcroft hasn't gotten a win or two at that point, it's hard to imagine him continuing as the head coach.
San Jose is currently up 1-0 on Philadelphia tonight. If Philadelphia can win that game tomorrow, that game on Thursday, where Edmonton plays San Jose, could just be absolute. Just if you want chaos, that could be chaos with the the Oilers playing the way they are against San Jose, who's looking for their first win. Could you imagine if it gets there? Could you imagine if that what would happen if everything goes right there?
Can I say yes? That's the honest answer is I think the Oilers they just need to, everybody in that room just needs to take a deep breath and realize they've got some talent there. They're gripping it right now. You can see how that they're rattled. They can just try to relax, go down to San Jose, get away from, maybe a little quieter with the media, and have a good practice here in between. If that's part of their schedule, go out there and get a win and get back on track. That's what has to happen for them. But yeah, Sean, I mean, boy, if they don't win that game against San Jose on Thursday, their season is toast. Like, I mean, it's yeah.
But we've got a comment here, there, Tyler.
No. Do we?
Tyler,
what does that even mean?
Nice run in from Devin.
Yeah, nice to hear from you as well, Dev. I know we can't see much of your hair, but that's yeah. One of these days, Dev, we'll get back on here together.
All right, so yeah, we talked about the Oilers being broken, and part of that was Jay Woodcroft being ejected from the game last night. He's the second coach to be ejected from the game for yelling at the officials.
Yeah.
What do you make of this, there, Tyler? As you're our in-house official.
Well, I have to. I guess my first comment is I never really thought I'd see the day where this part of the rule book would be used on a semi-regular basis. It's always been there where the game misconduct's a possibility if the refs have had enough of coaches, and it's always just been traditionally tolerated. What's changed this year? Well, the Athletic did a pretty in-depth piece on a meeting of all 32 NHL head coaches in Chicago just prior to training camps. And it was a presentation from Stephen Walkham, the director of officiating for the NHL. And they went through like rule changes over the years, and I think the review system, and it was a seminar, but a presentation that probably could have been done online or as a memo. Why are they summoning everybody there in person? Well, eventually it got to 20 minutes of showing clips of coaches blowing a gasket at the officials. And some great clips. You got to read this article. I can't remember who the writers are. I think Joe Smith and Mike Russo, I think, out of Minnesota. I'd have to check that. But they had some great clips of or great quotes from coaches too about feeling sheepish over them making the montage. Dean Evison, the Wild coach in particular, wanting, oh God, don't show me, and then boom, there he is up there just losing it on the refs. So they have been warned. That's the point. They were warned beforehand. It was public knowledge that they were warned beforehand to clean it up. There's cameras everywhere. We live in a social media world where everything goes viral as soon as a coach goes nuts. I mean, there's still to this day, Paul Maurice, when he was coaching the Jets, you'll probably remember this one. They go to review, they don't get the ruling, and then there's, he's yelling "F you" to the one ref. Then he sees the other ref, he's like "F you too." I mean, you can read it, right? And I pointed this out on Twitter in regards to Greg Cronin, and I know that people just probably roll their eyes at me. and call it the biased ref, which that's my point of view on this, right? I mean, I this is what I do as well, but there is a trickle down effect. Younger coaches coaching minor hockey games feel empowered to behave the same way when they're seeing it on the TV, even at a subconscious level. It's just like that's part of coaching if you're seeing it all the time on the TV, and it's eroding the depth pool of officials, and this is a problem that exists in all sports. We've talked about this all the time on this show. If you're losing kids in their teens that could one day be an NHL official and be a good one because of the behavior of abusive parents and coaches at younger levels, that hurts the game at all levels. It hurts the game at the NHL level. And so is the league doing it for that reason? I don't know. I think it's just that they would rather just want people to play nicer with their refs, probably. But there is broader benefit, I think, that it's like this. And how much does a $25,000 fine really make an impact? I don't know. But the more public embarrassment and the more times the coach has to take that walk of shame down the tunnel like Jay Woodcroft did last night, I think eventually the coaches are probably going to wake up a little bit and realize they got to rein it in a bit.
And then at that point in the game, like what's the harm in?
Well, the harm for Jay is it already just takes a bad situation as the coach and makes it worse. It makes it look even less steady. Like they're now, right? I mean, that in this context, it's worse. I mean, if they were doing fine, it was just one bad game with the refs, and that happens, it's really a non-issue. They just move on from it. But now this is dominating the discussion so much more now because it's just another thing on top of an already snowballing situation for the Oilers. And when they're dying for some steadiness and somebody to right this ship, your head coach is taking a walk down the tunnel because he got thrown out of the game. It's just, I mean, that's just it's.
I think
I'm not an Oilers fan.
Yeah, well, it's where I was coming from was like more from the official side. Like the game was 5-2 at that point.
Yeah,
less than both McDavid and Draisaitl were in the penalty box for undisciplined penalties. The Oilers were losing that game. You were makes sense to use that opportunity as a way to say no. There's no need for this. Just calm down.
Yeah, from the view of the ref, as far as are you going to impact the game? No, I mean it's kind of decided at that point. So just is it a bit of a power trip move to do it there? I suppose you could make that argument, but the coaches were warned to clean up your act or else, and the referees have been empowered by the league to say, hey, don't tolerate this stuff. You've got the tools in the rule book and use them, and they are using them. They are, right?
Yeah. And you don't want it to get to a point where you're Vanni Sartini after the Whitecaps game on Sunday.
Oh man, that was bad, eh? Actually, you know what? Vanni's comments were not as bad as some people were making them out to be. They were still bad.
No.
They should not have gone off like that by making references to, the guy being found in False Creek, and that's just Vanni, just don't. I know you're trying to make a bit of a crack at yourself there, but it's a bit, when you're hot like that and right after the match, don't, and then he kind of backtracked those comments today, I believe, but that's its own. I mean, we're a hockey show. That's its own other thing. What a disaster that was.
But I think that's just it's a whole thing right now with how under the microscope officials are, and how it's just you see so many people. Well, the refs are the officials in this sport and this league are the worst. No, these ones are the worst. No, these ones are the worst. It's just it feels like. And I've come across this way a lot. So, and this is the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
There's a lot of entitlement on the games need to and should be called perfectly when the games aren't played perfectly by the players, aren't coached perfectly by the coaches.
Yeah.
You're going to have missed calls.
Yeah. Well, and then I have to remind people too. Like people say, there's no accountability. Well, people want public accountability, and that's fine. But really, what are you going to get by trotting the refs out in front of the press all the time?
Was it the
Just excuses. You're just going to get, oh, I didn't see it, or this or that. Like nobody's going to be satisfied. It's just going to pour more gas onto the fire, I think. And
what
probably,
I'd like to
as
see
Don
is
Taylor and Rick Dollywell talked about, they might even actually erode your talent pool a little bit if you make that part of the job requirement.
what I'd like to see is just like I think the NBA did it a few years back was like our officiating report on controversial calls. Just go like talk to the officials who made the calls or non-calls, massage it because like it's going to be massage. Like yeah, just come out with a statement saying this is why it was called this way. This is why I didn't call it this way.
Yeah. But you see that if that's not going to go out and say on a regular basis we got the call wrong, I don't think that's going to satisfy people. Like people want to hear we screwed up, and then they want to know what's being done about it. And I don't think that exercise is really going to take it to that level. Although it would offer a degree of additional sort of transparency, which, like you say, the word massage, there probably is a pathway to putting something like that in place. But at the end of the day, people keep forgetting this. Though the people that have been like me, you've had your, I think, field hockey officiating experience. Like when you're actually out on the playing surface at the field level or the ice level, and you're not up high, and you're right there. Like you're part of the play. Like sometimes, I mean, you're like the speed of it, the angles of it, the inability to see the whole ice as well as you could from the seats, or certainly with camera angles. It's a much different perspective. So, we had one of these in the Canucks Oilers game that I went to start the season, where from my corner of the ice, sitting in the 20th row or whatever it was, it looked like a hook had occurred and the Canucks were going to get a penalty. And it looked pretty obvious. Like, it was like, okay, the arm went up, he's going to get called for hook. And then they called the penalty against the Oilers player. I was like, what? Then they showed us the replay, and he was clearly holding the guy's stick. And that's just one simple example, right? So these are the, I mean, we could go on for hours about this, and I don't want to do that here, but these are the limitations that exist with trying to get people to be satisfied with the officiating. And it only gets faster and faster, and unfortunately the talent pool of the officials is not keeping up with it, and there's many reasons why that is. And I think people that know me know how I feel about that, and that has a lot to do with the guys that are 13 to 15 that aren't sticking with it, unfortunately.
I agree with you there, Tyler. I think part of this, I think, is also it is to set a standard that this isn't acceptable. Like you look at all these like professional sports, and where how much abuse these officials get, and then it trickles down. So if the NHL and these top leagues start cracking down on it and making sure that no, these officials do have the ability to say get out, you're not welcome here. What if you're going to act this way, you're going to have less of it trickling down. So I think this is good.
So let's try to bring it to a less referee oriented note to close here. Going back to
we talked about a couple coaches there that got ejected here. One of them's on the hot seat. Yeah. So one last question: which coach has the hottest seat in the NHL right now? Which coach is looking behind them potentially for who's going to replace them?
I think it's got to be Jay Woodcroft. I know there's arguments to be made for DJ Smith and for Sheldon Keefe and maybe for some others, but it's got to be Jay. I mean, it's just how chaotic it was last night, and how it's been kind of building towards this point. How unprepared the team looked to start the regular season. And now his lineup choices, I mean, it's just like it looks like he's out of ideas. That the seat, I would be called. If he's gonna sit down on the seat, he better do so slowly. Let's put it that way, because she's warm right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's just the way the Oilers are playing. Like Sheldon Keefe, the Leafs they're not playing it up to the potential that they thought they should, but they're still right in the middle of it.
Hmm.
Senators are struggling as well, but just you've got Brady standing up to the fans and taking bullets for the coach. I think he's safer. David Quinn in San Jose, they knew they were going to be bad. They don't think they expected
Yes.
them to be this bad, but
Yeah.
they knew they were going to be bad. And I don't know what changing the coach does at this
Yeah,
point
and
for
I
them.
mean the Flames coach. I mean he just started. There's not going to be a
Yeah,
change there. I mean that's yeah.
no. So I think you're right. It's got to be Jay Woodcroft because I mean I don't know who's really available. Maybe Gerard Gallant. I know there
Mhm.
was some rumblings about Joel Quenneville, but with this latest lawsuit going back to the again that
2010
with the
Blackhawks.
Chicago 2010
Yeah.
Blackhawks. There's no way he's getting hired on here.
No, I just
It'd be
can't.
it'd be PR suicide by the NHL if they allow him to come back, and that's not going to happen.
No.
But yeah, you're looking at probably Gerard Gallant. Um, Maybe someone from the AHL, but that's really it for the options for that I can come up with at the top of my head for the Oilers. But I do think that at some point the Oilers need to make a move here, and the easiest move is to move on from Jay Woodcroft. And when he makes decisions to make comments to the officials to get kicked out of the game, it makes it easier too.
Yeah. I guess the next time we get together for this show, we'll see if he's still the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. We don't wish this upon anybody. I just want to be clear. We're not wishing for people to lose their jobs here, but operating in reality, it sure doesn't look promising for him right now.
No, no. Well, yeah, that's about it for today. Um, That's right. And we didn't. I think we covered everything that we wanted to cover tonight.
We did, yeah.
Yeah. Just a quick mention. Yes, there is a new lawsuit with the 2010 Chicago Blackhawks. We will be following that. And if there's more information regarding that and stuff to talk about, I think that we will. Just at this point, there's not much to really talk about that we haven't already discussed in the past.
Yeah, you bet.
How do we follow you there, Tyler?
I'm on Twitter/x.com at TNoble, TNOBLE.
You can follow me on the socials at BeardyConnect03. Kevin is KEVOLE on the social medias. Devin is Gordhouse09. He tried so hard to get something a little vulgar out there, but it got cut back. So he's back to Gordhouse09. You can follow Chris at Schneid, SCHNIDZ. You can follow us at Shifts and Pucks on Twitter/X, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And thank you for joining us today. Kevin will be back soon. He did a crossover episode with the Fireside Podcast on Sunday, so give that a listen. He will be working with them again this upcoming weekend to talk as their host Dan is away on vacation down in New Orleans. So thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you later. Bye for now.
I guess I'm by myself now.